Um, Peter and I will co-chair the meeting today. Jill, would you mind scrolling through the agenda really quick? So it looks like we have our 2026 calendar and committee and work group structure to talk about. And then the year-end report timeline and content. Legislative agenda is on our agenda, continued from the September meeting, and items for the next task force agenda. So we could get started with the 2026 calendar and committee and work group structure discussion. Is there somebody that wants to kick that off? Is there a question on the table for us to talk about, or just talking about the process and where we're at with that?
I'd love to talk about the process
Okay.
and how I'd love to hear from our co-chairs what would be helpful. I recently have been thinking just what a important time that we're in. Here we are planning a jail and behavioral care center. We are we have a uh-oh, I'm getting feedback. Hold on one second. Heather, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, much better. Here we are planning scenarios for this, the largest project Whatcom County has ever done. We have citizens who have reasonable questions about how it is that we're sizing this jail, and it's dependent very much on calculations around our diversion programs, and yet we've not made much progress as far as those being able to detail the the actual function of those diversion programs in sizing our new facility. And so there's a lot of critical things that the IPRTF, as far as I'm concerned, should be working on in the coming months. It seems to me that these should be on our calendar and our action plans. We have a criminal justice system that has blockages, and we need to be focused on those. I think we need to be focused on how our diversion programs are, what sort of capacity they're going to have, and what sort of effect they're going to have. So it would be my hope that we could really focus in on these things in the coming, particularly the coming first 6 months of 2026. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear what other people are thinking.
Thank you, Peter. As you share your thoughts about what we should be focusing on, as I scroll down in the packet, I'm also wondering and assuming that we are supposed to be talking about the committee and work group structure that's proposed for 2026. Jill, maybe you want to share your screen and we could look at that too really quick.
Yeah, sure. And I don't know that there was specific direction to talk about anything in particular
Okay.
for today's meeting. It was just said at the end of the last meeting that this item would be held over. So
Got it. Okay.
this, what you're looking for here.
Yeah. So where the proposal is that um are we planning to shift more to work groups and less to committees?
I think
Well,
this,
that is the proposal on the table. I was in the Legal and Justice Committee meeting, was it yesterday or the day before? And they have all decided that they want to go to half as many meetings and keep them to 1 hour. So, that was a strong recommendation from that committee anyway. My thoughts are that we have a lot of work to do. If that work is not going to be done in those committees, then we're going to need work groups. And to get that work done, that would be my
Yeah.
proposal.
If I may add, I think, Peter, the model of work groups has been really successful. The recent success with the Behavioral Care Center work group. Before that, we've had work groups on different topics too. Jill, you might have a better memory, but they've been very successful, I think. And given the budget constraints of the county and honoring, there's a formality to the committees and to the IPRTF. And there's a lot of support that comes with that. I'm supportive of us trying at least, sure, a few less committee meetings, but if we could create work groups that are tasked with driving forward on one of the goals of the IPRTF, and we have 10 goals, that could pull the right people together and actually start to make progress and advise the county. I'm very supportive personally of trying that structure. And I'd love to suggest that, we have that success with the Behavioral Care Center. Another top goal of ours is to evaluate diversion programs and understand the landscape of what actually is diversion. And then data, Birdie, you've been doing an incredible job leading on the date. That's our other top 3 goal, which all of them connect to each other, of course. But I think we could try out a work group with the diversion goal as our next trial on work groups. And overall, I think we could try this structure as proposed. So what are other thoughts from our steering committee friends? Tasha? You're muted.
Sorry. I guess I wasn't in on this prior discussion. I like the idea of a work group more than committee. I guess if a work group's come up with a proposal to the council, I assume that's what we would do. I guess my thought is maybe that needs to go to the committee as a whole to get a vote to push it to the council. Like maybe work groups would be monthly and the committees would be bi-monthly maybe, with the purpose that a work group has to be bringing forward an actual proposal to the council based off whatever. I mean, I'm not saying they're that specific timeline, but something along those lines, I assume, is specific goals and specific timelines for achieving said goals.
I think that's a great piece of feedback, and providing more guidance to work groups on process, procedure, outcome, format even could be really helpful, I think. So thank you for that feedback. I saw Peter's hand next and then Eric.
Thanks, Heather. So Tasha, what I think we found very helpful with the BCC work group was that I put together a proposal for it and with really tight goals and expectations and a process and timeline. And that's and then having one person, myself, responsible for kind of driving that that work group forward and making sure that our participants were coming to the table and had the time and everything that they needed to make good decisions, and then to make a recommendation up to the IPRTF. That's I think that's part of the secret sauce of how a work group could work. So thanks for your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Peter. Eric?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was part of the conversation yesterday that wanted to reduce the committee time, and I don't know why or what makes the work group work better or more effective, but it could be the people, could be the structure, but whatever it was, I mean, we've had more success and positive outcomes with a work group than we have with committee. So I support the idea of more work group, less committee.
Thanks, Eric. Tasha, did you want to respond too?
Yeah, I guess on the work groups, I mean, I assume if I understand those are not recorded, similar to a committee, and that just allows for more, maybe some more freedom in expression of different ideas back and forth without being held to account through a recording or anything to that effect. I guess on building these work groups, the one thing I do like about like some of the committee decisions on who's on that, and I get we need to have worker bees, but are we still continuing to make sure that there's a diversity in thought, a diversity of perspectives on the work group, so that you're not just moving forward with I'm all social services, but not really having a key criminal justice perspective on that committee. Those are just my concerns. Like I've been a little out of the loop lately because of my workload, and so I apologize if I'm asking questions that have already been kind of answered.
No, I think you're hitting on a few key realities. We all have lots of workloads, and so it's good to jump in and I'm right there with you. And I think what I'm hearing from your feedback too is if we move forward with this model, having some protocols and just sort of like, let's ask the question of are the right people in this room and is there the right diversity and perspectives to actually address the goal of the work group. So I think from here, if we agree, we could create like, here's the procedure and protocol to develop a work group and the questions we all want to make sure are asked and answered as a committee or as IPRTF before we form it. So I saw Eric and then Peter and then Brian.
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to answer Tasha's question, and I found the work group to be more diverse, and providing the information. I mean, people were able to come together with a good conclusion because of the diversity in the room. Anyway, that's all I wanted to answer.
Thanks, Eric. Peter?
Tasha, you're absolutely right to bring up those two very key points. It is critical that whenever we're doing a work group that we bring the right people to the table, and that, as Eric responded, we had all those right people there and diversity of opinion. And then it is really important that we realize that if we're going with this model, some of its power is that it is done outside the public eye. And people are able to, who are working for the county and other agencies are able to speak more frankly. But it is going to be critical that we make sure that we're reporting up to either the committee or to the task force what is happening in those meetings. So we are here for the openness and transparency and the county and the citizens' benefit. So let's never forget that. And I do believe that the work group structure, part of that secret sauce I was mentioning, is that that work can be done around that table, but we always want to be reporting out.
I agree, Peter. And I think I think that there's a clarification there too, because I could see that being a really good reason not to use work groups, right? That we want full transparency. We want these discussions to happen in the public and have community engagement. And so I think it's not so much that we get rid of that. I think there's ways to keep that, as you're saying, with report outs. But also it's like the formality of these committees and Zoom meetings doesn't allow for the dialogue and engagement that is productive on moving these goals forward. So yes, I agree. Brian and then Tasha.
As some of you know, I'm the co-chair of the Behavioral Health Committee, and we have a diversion and reentry work group. And we did discuss a number of diversion and one reentry issue. But the group decided really, unless we have some best practices or new ideas or especially related, to diversion. We're dealing with two separately elected entities here, judges and the prosecutor's office. So quite honestly, I'll just be frank. Some people said, well, I mean, and those offices will change obviously over the years. And so, that's a consideration, not within, the council or executives control. So, and also many of these issues are simply budget driven. I mean, it's especially related to reentry. So that's been some of our frustrations. And related to the size of the jail, I would again, you know, uh, the role of the prosecutor's office and the role of judges are key in terms of who's in jail for how long and why. And so I just think that's something that the task force should acknowledge. To the extent they can deal with that is perhaps unknown, but I'm just saying these are key political realities of sizing the jail going forward. And I just wanted to share that perspective.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for sharing that. Tasha?
I think like processing through what you guys are all saying about transparency and allowing for public input, I think the work groups are a great opportunity to have those very frank discussions. And as long as whatever proposals are kind of through those work groups, written up and then presented, that then presents the opportunity for the public to have their input. We can, there could be like, hey, after many discussions of multiple people, I mean, we don't have to go in the nitty gritty of what was said because they will have the opportunity to have a say on the actual proposals or have an opportunity for a public engagement, whether it's at the speaking forums before county council meetings, where there's a public comment times, or if we, one of the things with Justice Project Oversight and Planning is we're supposed to be engaging the public more. And so maybe we make that more of a focus of JPOP is how do we engage with the public? And we work with Riley on those types of things. So, I think it's workable. I like the idea that, it seems like committees are getting too far weighed down and becoming more of a sludge than a move forward. And if a work group is more that way, I think it's a good option because we still allow for the public comment in the final proposals that come out.
Thanks, Tasha. So for this discussion, I would love to reflect back some of the things I'm hearing. It seems like there's consensus about let's give this a try, that work groups are a really productive way that we can advance on our goals. We'd like to add on potentially some guidance for work groups. So this document really talks about how they're created, what their term is, who they include or don't include. But I think if we also had we want to make sure there's at least one IPRTF member on the work group, right? Aligned with a goal of the IPRTF so that there's a clear purpose and outcome. That there's a question asked about are all the players in this room that can actually be productive about this goal. And then request for minutes and reports to committees and or IPRTF. And then maybe a linkage to JPOP for that, especially for that public engagement, community engagement weigh-in, so that we don't lose that connection to the community and that transparency. Are there any other things that we want to capture in this conversation about if and how we move forward with work groups? Dean, you've been quiet. You've done a lot of meetings in process. Any opinions from you? Hannah, you've been an amazing co-chair with JPOP, and any opinions from you? And Bertie, you've done this your whole lifetime as well. So anything else you'd add?
I can jump in. I think, I would second the transparency thing is huge. And if there's a way to have it maybe one committee or some way to provide some additional oversight that is, just an additional opportunity for the public to really provide their own feedback and not just limit it to the IPRTF meetings or county council meetings. I think that would be great to continue that. I also think that I would like to see more coordination and more sharing, like more regularly sharing information among work groups. I think there's some things that J-POP with the oversight and planning that we have overseen were not often in the loop of some of the great work that the work groups are doing. So just make sure that that communication is really open and transparent for the public to see too. Yeah.
Great. Marty?
Hi, I just wanted to add one more thought, which is that it would be good to lay out the process of what happens after the work group presents to their committee or IPRTF, and the IPRTF is holding a beautiful recommendation. How does that then move forward through council and the executive's office toward action? If that's what the recommendation is about, so what does that process look like and who would be involved in that?
That's
So
great feedback.
things can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, do you have thoughts?
I do. We have a recommendation, I believe, coming from a work group, a data work group, and it has been sent, as I understand it, to all of the county council members, but until there's action there, nothing's going to happen. And so there is a political component to this where we need to lobby, take the time to lobby and find allies on the county council to bring these things forward. And Marty's absolutely right. I saw Bertie nodding there, and Bertie, perhaps you can speak from your experience. We have some important recommendations that are, as far as we can tell, just going to sit there until we do that political work.
Or do you have something to add?
Well, I would just emphasize what Peter's saying. Obviously, we're talking about the IPRTF recommendation adopting Village Reef's near-term action items, and then the additional recommendation from the data work group that went up through IPRTF, emphasizing the importance of hiring a project manager type person to get it going. And it has sort of launched into nowhere. And I think that we do need it, in addition to personal lobbying, we may need to go back to the county council, which created the IPRTF, and ask for a specific process when we do our work and come up with recommendations. What is the process that gets the recommendations heard with a discussion from representatives of the IPRTF about the thought process behind it? Because all of us don't want to put all this effort in, not to have it continue in the county political process.
I understand. I see Dan Hamill in attendees too, Jill, if you want to promote him up. Gosh, this could almost be a work group conversation too, because there's so much nuance to what role are we playing as the official IPRTF members, and then the political reality and influence. And I think there could be some education and kind of empowerment for all of IPRTF too, to say like, hey, you're welcome to go make public comment. You're not speaking on behalf of the body. None of us can do that unless we're given permission. But as a citizen or as a professional, right, we can go lobby, and there might be some really strategic ways to do that. In addition, though, I remember at the last IPRTF meeting, Kayla did share with us what would be helpful for county administration, right? Of like a policy analysis or summary document that we could try out, maybe even with the Village Reach recommendation if that hasn't been created yet, and start to formalize like what are the top 3 ways. And I think your suggestion's really valid about asking council what is the process they would like to see from IPRTF and what's helpful to them. Because they're a different body, obviously, than the county executive's office, and we report to them. So yes, I think all of these are really important things to talk about. For today, any other input? And Jill, I want to make sure, as the keeper of our progress, is there something you wanted or needed out of the discussion today to move forward on the work groups and committees?
Thank you for checking in, Heather. No, I'm good. I think this was just a discussion, and it will be important for Barry to hear all these comments. So I'll make sure he gets the video link to this
Okay.
when we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Dan, I know you were listening, and you also have a ton of experience with how to move good work forward with our government partners. Any additions to the discussion?
No, I think it's all evidence-based. I think we're we're good in that department. And sorry to be late. Crosstown traffic is terrible right now. Someone needs to write their city council person and tell them how terrible it is, and then it'll get solved that way. Anyway, no, I think that we just I think that we make the case, and we can show evidence on based on the research that's been concluded here, and there's a high degree of trust, I think, with this task force. So let's make sure that we leverage that.
Great. Thank you. Anything else on this topic before we move to the next one? Raylene? You're muted, my friend.
Technical difficulties, including the operator. My apologies. I think we also have to remember to go back to the statute that is part of the forming of the Incarceration and Reduction Task Force, which is RCW 7209-300, which is the local law and justice council, which is part of the formation of the Incarceration and Task Force, and why it's requiring different sections and the mechanisms that we're supposed to be sharing, and the communication, including the offenders and the feasibility. And I think we can't lose sight of the statutes that assisted us in forming this. It wasn't just a council action item, it was actually a statutory requirement. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
I think that's such a great reminder, and is probably worthy of a next steering committee agenda item to just, as our continuous improvement, let's relook at the RCW for Law and Justice, the IPRTF establishing ordinance, and even the steering committee scope, and just crosswalk and make sure and see, is there something that we need to be, are there players that aren't involved that need to be per the RCW, and just kind of a continuous improvement check-in on are we aligned with the laws that enable us. So okay. Our next topic is our year-end report timeline and content with Holly and Marty.
Thank you, Heather. Bertie, did you have one more comment before we make a?
Sorry.
Oh, that's fun. I just had a quick request. I remember that IPRTF is the official legal law and justice committee, but I've read our implementation plan and all that many times. I would really appreciate seeing a copy of the ICW and the requirements of that ongoing committee, because I agree with Raylene, it can fall between the cracks, and I remember their specific requirements. So would it be possible for you, Jill, or someone to send that around to steering committee members?
Yeah, I'm happy to send the links. Just in summary, the RCW basically says there will be a Law and Justice Committee. Here's the people who will sit on it, which the IPRTF does include all of those. And then it says, and the Law and Justice Committee may discuss topics such as, And then it goes into a list of law and criminal legal systems topics. It doesn't have actually any specific direction that it's required to do, just a list of suggestions. But I'm happy to schedule that on next steering, and in the meantime, send links to the RCW and county code for all.
I think, Jill, would you be willing to also send the enabling ordinance for IPRTF and the steering committee scope along with the RCW?
Sure.
And I would love to encourage us, it's not just a compliance conversation, but it's a like, how much are we utilizing the opportunity of the RCW? And is there a re-engagement strategy that we need to have to get the people that are in that RCW engaged? And or maybe we're doing great, but it'd be nice to just look at it. So. Okay. Thank you, Holly and Marty, for all of your incredible leadership and support. You for sure have helped us advance in so many ways this year, and over the decades, I think, of Whatcom County work. So I'd love to hear anything you want to share with us about the year-end report timeline and content and how we can be helpful to that process.
Great. Thanks so much, Heather. Yeah, I'm going to share a quick PowerPoint just to get us all on track. And this was created by Marty and myself. Okay, so here we are. We're going to talk about the reporting and planning. So just a reminder that we developed this year as part of our work to just really help us become more effective and more efficient in our planning and in our reporting processes, which are obviously linked, right? Looking ahead and then what actually happened. So here's this cycle, and we're here now in this in October, right? Where we're going to be having time at our next IPRTF meeting to talk about priorities for the coming year for 2026. And then we also are as we're looking ahead, we're also looking back and preparing the IPRTF year-end report to council. So what I'm going to speak to where we're at with both of those things here. And as you may recall, at our last IPRTF meeting, what we thought about trying to do is seeing if we could really support the committees in starting to do some of this legwork. And so we're making progress on that. So any focus topics, action items for 2026, and then what they'd like to include in the 2025 year-end report. So what happened with this is we realized we had calculated the time frame for that just a little bit too tightly. So we had Jennifer Moon, who works with us, Moonlight Solutions, to just do the regular thing of going back through the notes, putting those into a draft report, and then sending it out to the chairs. So that's where we're at right now in that process. So we've reviewed the committee notes, sent the accomplishments to each committee chair, and we're compiling and drafting the year-end report right now. So that's Jennifer Moon and myself and Marty supporting her. So what's important about this year's annual report is that we're really solidifying or landing it in the structure of the 10 goals of the IPRTF and crosswalking those or reinforcing how they are related to the Justice Project implementation plan. So that's coming out, and we will have, we're in good shape on that. So in November, we'll have the first draft for the steering committee and the IPRTF for feedback subsequently, as we do, and then get that feedback. In December, we'll have the second and final draft, the steering committee, and then the IPRTF for approval. And then it goes to county council in January or whenever it works out to get onto their docket. So any questions on this part? This is just the basic timeline and this where we are now and the steps to get it completed. Okay, then let me go on to where we are with the planning. So 2026 planning, if you recall on our flow chart, our cycle, planning cycle, our goal in October is to look at our shared priorities. So one aspect of that may be to reevaluate the 10 goals and top 3 priorities. Should we change them? Should we keep them the same? So my assumption is that we will be doing that at the upcoming IPRTF meeting, and that Heather and Peter and Marty and I will figure out the best way to kind of structure that conversation. So stay tuned on that. Then in November, based on, so here we are looking at the whole, what's like, where are we going to really be pushing the needle forward and joining forces, and how our committees line up with that. So all of the committees meet in November, and we are asking that each committee actually take the time and put it on their calendars and on their agendas to identify their priorities for 2026. So if people, everyone, you chairs can get that to us by November 30th, then we will have enough time to actually then put together the draft action plan and calendar for 2026 to be approved in January. So that's the hope. So, basically the same format we already sent to you with that worksheet, and it's just a matter of focusing on it. And then we can offer, Marty and I and Heather and Peter, I'm sure can offer you all as committee chairs, any support in making that happen. So yes, Peter, that's it, by the way, that's my presentation. So yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Well, thanks for that, Holly. Yeah, I would like to offer, as I have before, to the committee co-chairs, if there's anything I can do to help you to organize your schedules for next year, what it is that you're going to be focusing on, I would love to help. So please reach out to me. I'm not going to necessarily make that offer for Heather. She could do that herself if she likes, but please, don't let more time go by. Like I said, I sat in on the Legal and Justice Committee meeting yesterday, and this was on the agenda, but there really wasn't a great deal of discussion or around it, and it just seems like a missed opportunity. It's like, let's focus in. There's just so many things that our legal and justice system needs to be doing in preparation for this big build out that we're doing, and let's keep the ball rolling. What can we do, and what do our work groups need to be doing? So please reach out. If I can be helpful, I want to be. Thank you.
Thanks. Marty, is there anything that I forgot that you feel like we should make sure to flag here today?
Nope, that was spot on.
Okay. Jill, how about for you? Anything from your end that we should bear in mind?
I do have a couple of questions, but I prefer to chat with Barry and you guys first. So let me think about this. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, from anybody else, any questions about what we're doing here with our process, or any feedback, needs?
Can I just want to reflect back. I think what we really want the committees to do is reflect on the work they've done this year and then think about what is the work and accomplishment they want to focus on for next year, right?
Yeah, and their reflection, pretty much we've got.
Okay.
We got that, send it to the committees, and Jennifer's working on that report. So that part we're solid on. It's more, how do we help support them in focalizing? So here's our big goals. How is your committee going to help with that? as well as the other things you have priority on, right?
Okay. I wonder about if the chairs of the committees are also, like, is it helpful if me and Peter and Holly and Marty suggest things too and say, here's what we think would be really helpful for you to focus on to advance these goals? Or does that feel like overstepping? I mean, obviously it's always a dialogue all ways, but Raylene, go ahead.
So I'm always open to assistance on trying to get more dialogue. I think sometimes we end up with a lot of meetings on the legal and justice that we're spread thin. A lot of the different members are, and I don't think we didn't even have a quorum yesterday. So some of the things that we probably could have done more on, we couldn't even vote. But when we send stuff out and we hope that people will have the time to look at that and then we can get more feedback, it's not a simple process. At least it has been a challenge over the years. I think Jill can attest to that. We do have goals. There's certain things that we want to do and accomplish, but sometimes being able to get everybody together and on the same page moving forward is sometimes a struggle, but I'm always open to suggestions and thoughts on how to change some of those things. Thanks.
Thanks, Raylene. Thanks for being open. We're all learning, continuous improvement all the time. So, Tasha.
Similarly, obviously, I'm always for input on the overarching goal. What is our role in it, and how can we help accomplish that? As far as not duplicating the same work, that's one of the feedbacks we've gotten about committee meetings. Is we go to one committee meeting and then the next committee meeting, you're just kind of rehashing the same information as the other committee meeting because. So there's some new people. So how can we streamline that? Because you do need to maintain that conversation and knowledge of this team is doing this work and they've accomplished this. So there has to be that sharing time, but also, okay, in support of that overarching goal, this is what we've accomplished and then moving forward. So I think really highlighting, as we've pointed out in all year long, our focus is data sharing, because that's a big a barrier to some of our programs is the lack of data sharing. And then the jail obviously being a big capital project, the three big things identified and what is which committee can do the most work in what area, I think is where really identifying, like J-POP is gonna, we know what our overarching commitments are supposed to be, but in keeping with those commitments, what can we do for IPRTF in general that moves everything forward so we're just not duplicating the same work?
Thank you. Great feedback. Dan?
Yeah, I second that. That's totally accurate. So I think one thing that would be helpful for me as a co-chair, and I don't want to speak for Brian. I know I see him on the call here, but we're going to make a recommendation or several recommendations here by the end of the year from the Behavioral Health Committee, and I think we need some direction moving into next year as to what the steering committee and the task force wants us to do. There's a fair amount of work, and some of it's cross jurisdictional, and so we just need to have those discussions and try to figure out how to move forward. So we need some guidance here.
Great. Thanks for the invitation. So we'll follow up with you on that. And Raylene and Tasha, happy to also have some follow-up conversations. So awesome. Holly and Marty, you feel good about that agenda topic? Okay. Tasha?
And I don't know if this is allowed, but I know I'm asking kind of Marty and Holly. When Hannah and I have our co-chair meetings with you for planning the J-POP, would it be beneficial to maybe invite Heather or Peter in on those to also, because they're also the overarching of supporting of IPRTF, or is that not allowed? You could say it's not allowed. I just didn't know if because we have such good, frank discussions about direction, within those meetings sometimes, that maybe that would be an appropriate time versus trying to set aside yet another hour somewhere else in all of our busy schedules to do something can be incorporated into discussions we already have scheduled.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought, Tasha, and I think that our goal is to not add more to Peter and Heather's plate. So when there's things we know we want them to like be paying attention to, I feel like we do communicate that. And Peter and Heather, as far as I'm concerned, you're always welcome. So it's yeah, I think we're good, but I appreciate that openness. And I think the more that we can have, you know, without demanding too much more of Heather and Peter's time, I think they've done an awesome job of helping to keep the connectivity, and really their generosity of time and spirit here cannot be overstated. So, you know, thank you for helping us keep this ship moving in the right direction. To Heather and Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, truly, it's a joint effort, and I mean, we could have a love fest all day long here with all the people on this screen. But I do want to say, Tasha, I think if there are agenda planning meetings that you would like me and Peter to even come to 10 or 15 minutes of, right? Not even the whole thing. We could just come for the last part. I do think that with our, like, the reminder and putting front and center, here are the top 3 goals, here are the top 10 goals, you know, that's helpful for keeping us all aligned. But I'm hearing the feedback also about redundancy in discussions, and there does need to kind of be a human connection to say, like, oh, no, diversion and you know, or the BCC groups talking about that. Here's the one piece that J-pop could be really helpful in, right? And giving that sort of feedback. And so I think it's, and I'm grateful, Holly, for you protecting mine and Peter's time too. So the balance though of like how, you know, we all want to have purpose and meaning and productivity in these discussions, and sometimes death by meeting does happen, right? So we can be honest about that and make it better. So okay, legislative agenda is next, and it looks like there's a really awesome proposal for a legislative work group. Jill, did you put that together?
I did not. That came from Peter and Brian, I believe.
Oh my goodness. Peter and Brian, you guys are amazing. This is such a great template for how to suggest work groups. Do you two want to talk about what's before steering today?
Sure. Brian, do you want to start or shall I?
Why don't you start, Peter?
Okay. You may remember that at our last steering committee meeting, I believe Brian brought this subject up. And he and I worked together putting this proposal together. I based it off of the proposal structure that I did for the BCC work group. And after having that experience, learned a few lessons. And so that's the result from this, aside from some back and forth with Brian. So I think the big flaw in this is that we didn't do this back in June, and so that's the big flaw, because we're all the way down the line here in October, and so it's a little late, but it is a template for you know, this legislative session and the next and the next and the next. So this would be coming before the IPRTF October meeting for adoption, I would hope. And there's a motion there, and so also a discussion could be had on who would be the participants of this work group.
I would just second Peter's observation that ideally we should start this process earlier, especially next year when it's a full session.
Great. Looks like a really awesome proposal. Any feedback or perspective to add before moving it forward to the full body. Tasha, go ahead.
Just reading through this. Yeah, maybe it's a little late in the season to get this up and running for this 26th legislative session, but is there already a group that already had, like, I know for law enforcement, we have weekly sessions on bills coming out that we then can discuss, you know, how is this going to impact and then kind of get law enforcement professionals geared to, you know, reach out to their legislatures, et cetera, and communicate. So I guess, do we have that going forward? Like, not as an advisory, but just more like, hey, as our group, you know, are we keeping an eye on the 26th session, like maybe having a regular updates as, you know, this bill is going to impact and this is how it's progressing through, and this bill is going to impact and this is how it's progressing through. Maybe we don't have the advisory group ready, but are we going to, is Brian or who's doing that work that is coming up for this session? And at least, and just having those discussions.
Well, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I have volunteered myself. I know Brian is interested. There are a number of people on this screen who would be have always shown an great interest in the legislative session, and so I'm hoping in the October meeting we'll have a good 5 people who want to step forward and make some progress on this, and then follow it throughout the legislative session and create the kind of the muscle memory for next year and for subsequent years.
Tasha, go ahead.
I guess, like I said, I know through like WACOPS and the chiefs and sheriffs, they have weekly sessions. You know, every Friday they have like an hour, like, here's the bills specifically for law enforcement. So I guess, is there for in social services or whatever, do you have your own one? Because then maybe we could just say, hey, I'm going to attend this one's specific to law enforcement, and you're going to attend yours, and then we're going to come together after. And where do they intersect to help us all? Because this is what our community needs, I guess. Don't have to rewrite the will if we're already doing if people are already doing that work within their specialty of the criminal justice field or the social services field. Who are those people? Are we already identified them? And then can we use that information moving, or, you know, you don't have to bring up more people to do the same thing that's already work that's being done.
Tasha, am I understanding your question to be more like, how are we keeping informed about what's going through the legislature and sort of what that lobbyist role does already?
Well, so each group has their own lobbyist, right? Like, we have our own lobbyist for law enforcement specific, and you have, you know, I know AWC has their own city's lobbyist that's overall, and I assume behavioral health has probably a lobbyist specialist. I'm just saying, are we taking all these lobbyists? Like, I'm already going to do weekly meetings to stay updated on law enforcement related laws. So I'm just more thinking, like, the people that are already doing the work, are we coming together and going, okay, can we mutually support each other's bills? Like, if I'm going to already talk to my legislator about law enforcement, and I know from you, Heather, that this social services and this law enforcement bill will be good together, well, then I can advocate for both, right? So that's
sounds like you should be on this work group for sure. Because from my understanding, people here may know more, but I don't think that level of sophisticated coordination on behalf of our community is working like as you suggest, and it should be, and it could be, and we could prototype it. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. I see Brian, Dan, and then Raylene. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to suggest in other entities that have a process like this, the county council would actually approve a legislative advocacy resolution of some sort. And so and I just real quick, I know I've been in touch with a couple local state representatives through NAMI and other connections about a couple of issues that I think make sense for the county to lobby for. And also, I believe Melora and her group, Christensen, were working on some more specific proposal for 23-hour facilities, because that is going to come up this year about how people that between Medicaid eligibility and those with private insurance, those stuck in the middle, how they can be reimbursed, the facilities can be reimbursed if they go to a 23-hour facility. So that's a couple of examples of some things. And I think the Behavioral Health Committee will take a role in maybe flushing some of those things out between now and the end of the year. So I just wanted to share that information.
Thank you, Brian. Dan?
Yeah, I guess I have a question and then kind of more of a statement, but I'll wait until the others have spoken to the statement or to speak to the statement. But can we lean into the county's lobbyist group for support? I mean, that would be the most kind of direct path to get agendas. And then so question one and question two would be, we have to, I think, come up with alignment with what the county wants to do. And so if we're like way over here and they're over here, then that's probably not going to work. So how does that, like, what are the tools that we have at our disposal? And the key tool that I would be asking about is the lobbyists that are working on behalf of Whatcom County.
I see in the outcome here that this work group will be making recommendations to County Council and the Executive's Office, not so much direct lobbying on behalf of IPRTF, which answers one of your questions, Dan, about coordination. I think, because we should not be advocating for two separate things necessarily, and I think we could ask about could we talk directly to the lobbyist, or could we have some sort of connection to the county's lobbyist? So
I think I'm just asking for guardrails, like what's our lane? That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Raylene, and then Tank, and then Jill, and then Peter.
So just so some of you are aware, and to kind of follow up with what Tasha was saying, there's the Washington Association of County Officials organization. I just came back from that training. That was 2 weeks ago, and it was in Kennewick. And so there was somebody from the auditor's office, there was assessors, there was sheriffs, there was the clerks. So there was representatives throughout the state at this conference. They also, each group has legislative actions that we want to promote. So the Clerks Association has a group of clerks. There's 4 of them on our legislative committee to move forward with the priorities. So we had something for rules of appellate procedure that we wanted to move forward for the Clerks Association. That's going to benefit us. That's there's new mandates, and that we can't afford things because of the unfunded mandates. There's another one on protection of clerks, because a lot of people thought the clerks in Superior Court were part of admin. They didn't realize the separation. So there was different things that were like, this is what we need. And then the assessors have something, the coroners brought stuff, and they all spoke to each different group on why these are important and what the asks are. And then they provide those to the legislative lobbyists that are coming for the county officials to move those action items forward to Olympia. So that just happened. Those things are in progress. Like Tasha was saying, like law enforcement has their own groups that do the lobbying. The clerk's office has one. Superior Court admin have lobbyists. There was prosecutors that had that were also there. It was pretty much the elected officials at this conference for the counties. So there are stuff that is already in play. So maybe tapping into those some of those resources would be beneficial. Thanks.
Super great to know about all of that. Thanks, Raylene. Tank?
Yeah, I totally agree what what Tasha was saying earlier, but I also think we have an opportunity here to really understand the Public Safety Fund program, HB 2015, and how that affects not only Whatcom County, but all the different municipalities. And I know this week, Linden City Council just approved HB 2015 by councilmatic action, and it was unanimous, and it was unanimous for their council. Bellingham City Council passed theirs, and Whatcom County, we haven't presented the package yet, but I know there's some taste, if you will, from some people not to pass a new tax via councilmatic action. But I think when you look at, for Whatcom County, potentially bringing in $7 million a year, and those funds can be used for the prosecutor's offices. It can be used for Superior Court. It can be used for behavioral health. It can be used for the sheriff's office and all these different programs that it's important that I think these committees and might want to understand the benefit of this. And I know City of Ferndale is looking at it as well to include other cities here in Whatcom County. So I think we really need to lean into this and understand how it might be a benefit. So when it does come up for councilmatic action, or if it will, I don't know if it will, here in Whatcom, for Whatcom County Council, that it will help, I believe, in the long run, all these different programs. Thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up, Tank. I think that would be worthwhile for potentially an IPRTF full discussion of just understanding what's this new sales tax revenue, who's making decisions about it, how is it aligned or not with the Justice Project, what are the implications and opportunities of it. So go ahead, Jill.
Thank you, Heather. A couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to let everyone know the County Council's agenda for next Tuesday came out yesterday, and it does include an agenda item in Committee of the Whole that the Exec's Office put on there. It's a discussion with the County Council's Committee of the Whole and the county's policy advisors. So that is a discussion that's scheduled for Tuesday at 1 p.m.
Great.
It's an open meeting. You're all welcome to attend in person or online.
And that's for HB 2015.
You know, I haven't read through the document, Sheriff, but it's online. I can send a link to it and you can all see what their proposal and presentation is going to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Going back to the procedure for this work group, I have one concern that I need to look into. The language in this proposal reads, at least to me, to seem that the recommendations would bypass IPRTF review and go directly to council. And I do have a concern primarily with transparency and OPMA issues, because the reason that these work group structures work without OPMA that we're proposing here is because all the recommendations eventually do go to IPRTF for a public review process. I'm concerned that should the work group engage here without that planned review, it's going to trigger some OPMA issues. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We might need to tweak that just a little bit.
Thank you, Jill, for noticing that. Peter, I imagine that's a friendly amendment to the proposal.
Oh, yes. Yeah. In fact, thank you so much, Jill. That's entirely on me, and that needs to be updated. And then this is for Dan. Dan, since you have been through this, this ain't your first rodeo as far as legislative sessions go and such, and preparing for them. I would ask that you take a look at this document and before the meeting and come up with any changes. And Jill, thanks so much for that So let's make sure that we can have something that we can pass out of our task force on October, is it 27th? What date
Yep.
is our meeting? Yep. Okay.
Jill, do you need a formal vote from this committee to move it to the IPRTF?
No, I do not.
Okay,
I
great.
can, but I do not. I think probably it might be wise to amend the language a little bit first before any votes are taking on it.
Great. Thank you.
And Jill, would you make those suggestions via email?
I will, yes.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, can we move to item number 5, items for the next task force agenda? On our agenda, we have BCC work group recommendation, year-end report, exec quarterly report, and presentation from STV on capital project dashboard, review IPRTF 2026 calendar, priorities, action plan updates, and work group structure, and committee updates. We'll be adding the legislative work group proposal. Is there anything else that people want to weigh in on that? Peter, go ahead.
I have reached out to Dean White to ask him to report on the update of the SIM that you and I and Hannah Fisk and Dean White have been involved with the AOC. And so I think this is directly related to some of our key work. Some of it is suggested from the Village Reach report. It is also connected significantly to our implementation plan as far as better continuity of care, using greater communications and creating better continuity of care. And so I think that will be a really good presentation. I want everybody aware of this all-important SIM update that would be happening in February.
Mm-hmm. And you want that on the IPRTF agenda just for an update on that process and what we're doing?
Yes,
Okay.
and Dean White has said that he would come and do a short presentation on that.
I don't think you can see the whole room. Dean White is sitting with us. And
Oh, yeah,
Hi,
I'm on
Dean.
my phone, and so
Yeah.
hey, Dean, thanks for being willing to come to the meeting. Appreciate it. And Dean, since you are here, would you like to give a little update to the steering committee or about what the SIM update is?
Sure, I'll be very brief. One of the recommendations put forward by the Village Reach report was that we update the sequential intercept model material that we had developed a couple of years ago, or updated a couple of years ago, to help guide the decision making around the Justice Project implementation plan. And we've reached out to the Administrative Office of the Courts to see whether they are still interested in supporting that kind of an update through providing facilitators for what would be a 1.5-day gathering of from 50 to 60 stakeholders relative to our entire justice project and the updating of the SIM sequential intercept model to help us understand ways we can in fact divert folks from the criminal legal process at various intercept points. So as Peter indicated, a few of us have already met to work on sort of supporting the planning for that event. We're going to be asking others to help with that work. I think led in large part from the logistical point of view, by Heather and the Chucknut Health Foundation, who, as I think many of you know, has a pretty good repertoire of convening large group sessions to do this kind of work. So that's what's in the works. It's being planned for the week of February 23rd, and I think Heather is about to reach out to various venues to make sure we know what dates are feasible within that week period.
Thank you so much, Dean. This was also, I think, one of our top 10 IPRTF goals this year was updating the SIM. And I think it'll be a really helpful tool for the Justice Project moving forward. And if anyone's interested in helping plan that, we have quite the invitation for support to help plan that and really make it a robust and productive meeting and not anything that's duplicative or redundant, and building on, like, in so many ways, Whatcom County, I think, is ahead of many other places. And so it's been fun to talk to the courts about, like, oh, we've actually already done that part. So how do we make this really building on the foundation of excellence that we do have, and making it a very productive use of time for people. It will be a big ask. It is 2 days, but I think the deliverable out of it is going to be well worth it. So, anything else on the items for the next task force agenda? Jill, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick clarification. Peter and Heather, do you want the legislative work group discussion to be done as a separate agenda item, or do you want it held under the steering committee update?
Well, does it need a vote?
I don't think it needs a vote. No.
Then I think, I don't know, Peter, what do you think? I think it's worthy of its own agenda item.
I do too.
Okay.
Doesn't it need a vote? I mean, we'd be putting a motion on the floor to create the work group, would we not?
Yeah, let me check the rules of procedure and I can get back to you guys on that. The other
Okay.
work groups have not, I don't believe, except for maybe BCC, the other work groups did not have IPRTF approval. They were formed under the Behavioral Health Committee
I see.
and the Legal and Justice Systems Committee, I believe.
And this would be more along the lines, or as I see it, more along the lines of the BCC work group.
Yeah. I think one way or another, Jill, it's worthy of its own agenda item and really
Sure.
calling out for the, yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to do that. Yep.
Thanks so much. Would you like to move to other business? Are we good on the agenda? It looks like a pretty full packed agenda. It's a meeting that you're not going to want to miss. So, other business. Any updates or things that are on your mind, work aligned with the goals of the IPRTF, or anything for the good of the order? I see Dan, go ahead first.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to make a quick announcement on the DeGual mobile medical unit. The second one is going to be setting up shop in downtown Bellingham on November 3rd, and a significant amount of outreach will be conducted to make they're mailing to every mailbox in Whatcom County to make sure that people know about both the Division Street and the downtown location will be up and running. So there's that good news. And they dispense methadone and Suboxone. And that's directly related to the behavioral health group and to the broader task force. And then the second announcement would be that the city of Bellingham has signed on to an amicus brief suing the federal government to not suspend Medicaid reimbursements to certain medical providers. And that's also directly related to the Behavioral Health Committee as well. So I just wanted to provide those two updates.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thanks for the courage to do that. Any other business? I'd like to share that the All Hands Whatcom Summit a few weeks ago was so well attended. There were over 300 people who joined. Thank you for those of you who came. I saw Marty there. Dan, you were there for I think all of it. Eric, you came. Thank you. The first day was a half-day re-entry simulation, and Executive Sadhu was there, and he participated the entire time, and it was amazing to see everybody really fully engaged and really kind of, getting a taste of compassion and empathy for what is it like to leave a jail or prison, and all of the barriers in place. And as we really think about how do we achieve public health and public safety, there's so much opportunity still. Yes, we're doing great. And there's so much opportunity still to think about what is the long-term decision for people that will actually achieve public health and safety versus what is the 3-day or 3-week decision, So anytime you want to have a discussion about that, I'm all in. And then the second day was all about lived experience and recovery and the intersections of substance use and behavioral health and reentry and incarceration and everything that's aligned with the IPRTF. And I wanted to thank the co-chairs of JPOP too. I was watching the lived experience panel you hosted in August, I think. And wow, that should be required watching for every leader and every person in Whatcom County to hear the real stories and the barriers. And we need more second chance employment. We need more, that first 48 hours of post release, like where do people go? And if we want to reduce recidivism and reduce incarceration, that's such a window of opportunity that we need more peer navigators. I'd love to put all that in the legislative agenda. So thanks for coming. And Raylene and Marty, I saw your hands go up. So Raylene, go ahead.
Thank you. You just reminded me, for those of you that might already know, the Whatcom County Summit on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and People is Thursday, November 6th. And that is being put on by the Whatcom County Commission on Sexual and Domestic Violence. So,
Thank you for that reminder, Raylene. Marty, go ahead.
The All Hands Whatcom Summit was excellent. And I just want to make sure everybody knows that today's JPOP meeting at 2:00 is going to include Heather's team doing a little debrief from that meeting, like what were some of the highlights, gaps in the system, and barriers to addressing those gaps that came out. And then we'll have a panel discussion of providers talking about how to address some of these gaps. And so I feel like all of us together are really trying to push this ball forward. And then there's another debrief of the All Hands Summit on October 27th. I just saw that Chuckanut's hosting. So I think these conversations are super valuable and I'm excited about them. I think we're generating momentum.
Thanks, Marty. Tasha?
Raylene, is that the one at Peace Health, the Murdered and Indigenous Women? Okay, and you said November?
It is November 6th, 2025, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Peace Health St. Luke's Community Education Center on Squalicum Parkway.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I had one in my inbox, but that's from last year's one. So, okay. Can you email me the link? Because I don't know that I got it for this year's and I would like to sign up for it. Thank you.
Happy to. Thanks.
Any other business before we move to public comment? Okay. We have one attendee in our guest room. Thanks for watching and listening today. Jill, I'll leave it to you for procedurally inviting public comment.
Sure, yes, we do have one attendee. If you would like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. No hands are raised. I don't see anyone in our conference room. And Peter and Heather, if you have time for just a minute after the meeting to chat, I would appreciate that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for a great, robust discussion and for attending today and giving your time to these worthy goals. And I'll officially adjourn us. And I hope you get to go have a nice lunch and rest for a minute. On to the next thing.